around this country for the opioid crisis.
You're the one that's in New York right now. I'm not. But I agree with you on the opioid crisis.
Brian,
the opioid crisis has been undercovered by the national media.
Yes,
we have to do a better job covering that.
Come and follow me. You're welcome. I don't want it to be a media spectacle.
But why doesn't the president talk about it, Kellyanne? Cameras would follow him wherever he goes.
Now, hold on. He talks about it plenty. He has a White House commission. There's $45 billion committed to it in this health care bill. And he's got Secretary Tom Price
He's tweeting about pardons. He's not tweeting about the opioid crisis.
He tweets about everything.
I would love for him to tweet about real issues.
He tweets about many things, and he's put together a White House commission on this, a bipartisan commission, and he's sending Secretary of HHS Tom Price and I out to meet with people. And I want to tell you something. When I meet with those people who are suffering from the opioid crisis, the scourge of our times, where no state has been spared, no demographic group untouched, I've never asked a single one, nor would I ever, hey, do you support the president? How did you vote? Are you a Democrat? We're here to help everyone, and we would like your help at least being honest enough to say people in this country who aren't as privileged as you and me, Brian, are suffering, and we're there for them. And, you know, when you talk about these approval ratings, when you talk about, look at the approval on the economy, look at the numbers that matter to people. Look at all the job creation. Look at the $70 billion they project will be saved through the 14 Congressional Review Acts that this president has put forth. Look at how he's building the wall. Look at the illegal boarding crosses that are down. Look at ISIS in retreat. Look at him negotiating a ceasefire in part of Syria.
ISIS was in retreat before November 8th or 9th. A lot of these things were already happening.
They weren't.
I appreciate your points about the president's momentum, but this is a White House in crisis, whether you recognize it or not. The credibility gap is severe.
Where do you get that? Where do you get that? It's a White House in crisis.
The credibility gap is severe. The president's misleading and false statements on a regular basis to most of the country, even if you're going to stick with that 36% that approved no matter what.
No, you're not looking at part of the disapproval are the independents who voted for him and want him to ignore all the nonsense and all the noise and all the Russian nonsense. That's part of it. Part of it is people upset with Congress. The president's approval rating is far higher than the approval rating of the media or the Congress, and there's a reason for that. Americans are looking at the media, they're looking at Congress and saying, do your job. Your job is not to Russia, Russia, Russia all day long and hoping that something manna will drop from heaven one day and this will be real and not phony. The job of the Congress,
you know,
the job of the Congress
are figuring out what's going on through investigations.
Okay, well, but why don't you cover what you do know is real, which is that millions of Americans don't have health care.
There's a lot of reporters who are covering lots of things.
Not. We've done a content analysis.
What you see on 1 hour, you're acting like what you see on 1 hour of CNN it equates to the entire national news media, tens of thousands of hardworking journalists who love America, who also want to make sure the president's doing his job.
Yes, they do. Sure, but you look at his job through the lens of Russia. I look at his job through the lens of America. So on that, we're always going to disagree. Number two, and most importantly, this president is out there all the time. I mean, you've got CNN reporters with him. If you just stopped and talked to those people and asked them why they're there, how do the veterans feel now that they've got an ability to access care? How do the coal miners feel that their health care benefits were protected and the regulatory burden that was placed on them by the last president was lifted in the first couple of months? How do the pro-lifers feel?
It sounds like you should be an assignment editor, Kellyanne. I'm sure you could get a job in a newsroom.
No. Well, why would I want that? I'm counselor to the president. But I am telling you that
because you're listing off all these stories that you believe are undercovered, and I respect that you think they don't get enough attention.
They are.
But journalists
you know
also
what?
recognize
Twitter's not an assignment editor.
Scandals going on.
I
agree with you on that.
On?
But since this is a show about the media, since this
Go
is a
ahead.
show about the media,
I'll sit here. I want to hear about the. No. You can't get away with that. What are the quote big scandals going on? Please name them for me.
When you look at this president's rhetoric. His demagogic behavior when it comes to the media, yes, it actually is. But the more important scandals are what happened before. You don't think that his words against the media are poison, Kellyanne, actually hurting the country on a daily basis?
His rhetoric
is a scandal? When he calls real news outlets fake news, he poisons our public discourse.
Hey,
makes it harder for us to communicate as a country.
So I've never used those words.
It makes it harder for us to trust each other.
I've never used those words,
and I wonder why that is.
But hold on, but it doesn't stop people at CNN on personally attacking each of us and running these ridiculous palace intrigue stories basically since the day we've been there, where the only people who got fired so far.
There shouldn't be personal attacks, but there is a lot of palace intrigue, Kellyanne.
The only people who got fired so far don't work in the West Wing and his inner circle. They worked at CNN. 3 of your colleagues got fired here because they rushed to judgment to our new communications director.
So you're complimenting CNN.
Anthony Scaramucci.
You're complimenting CNN for taking action and holding journalists accountable for not following editorial practices.
I don't think you had a choice.
Why hasn't the White House
held
aides accountable for false statements?
Brian, that is ridiculous. Are you telling me that the fact that 3 of your colleagues were forced to resign or got fired here because they were slandering my new White House colleague, Anthony Scaramucci, was gracious and humble enough to say, I'm glad they retracted the story. I accept their apology because he's got class and grace. Are you telling me that that reflects well on CNN, that you're going to go out with thinly or anonymously sourced stories that end up being complete slanderous hit jobs on a good man? I mean, this is a two-way street. But look, you're looking at everything through the lens of the media.
Kellyanne, you've been an anonymous source.
You said
lots of people in the White House have been an anonymous source.
Excuse me.
This morning, Anthony Scaramucci said on state. Go ahead.
No, go ahead. No, I just wanted to say, because you said there are, quote, big scandals. And when I asked you what these big scandals are, because I can't let these incendiary words just float out there with no evidence. I can't just because people want clicks, they want things to go viral, they want ad revenues. I won't do that. But if you can tell me what these big scandals are, you came back with rhetoric.
I'm not trying to go viral. But the scandals are about the president's lies, about voter fraud, about wiretapping, his repeated lies about those issues.
He doesn't think he's lying about those issues, and you know it. He has gone forth and he talked about surveillance, and you know we've got
a lot of husbands don't think they're lying when they cheat on their spouse and then say they're not. Doesn't mean you're not lying.
Are you back to the Clintons now? What are you talking about? What kind of analogy is that? I mean, look.
I
Brian,
appreciate the Clinton pivot. I do. I respect what you do and how you do it. Can we take a look at something that Anthony Scaramucci said on State of the Union this morning?
I watched the whole interview.
Scaramucci said there could be leaks coming from